My first night alone in the morgue changed everything about me. To think I could become so deeply engulfed by such profound darkness, encircled by those who had slipped away into the boundless unknown. I was forewarned about the sensations that lurk in those quiet, haunting hours, the eerie bustle of the living entwined with the heavier presence of the dead. But even the most vivid warnings could not prepare me for the chilling reality that lay ahead in that stark, clinical environment. Years of diligent study, nights filled with books and painstaking practices, had culminated in pouring my very soul into anatomy, biology, and the delicate, practiced art of preservation. As a freshly minted mortician, my heart pounded fiercely when I received that job offer, a heady mix of pride, anticipation, and undercurrents of dread. Stepping through the doors of that sterile, cold room for the very first time, with bright white walls and metallic instruments glinting under unforgiving clinical light, my initial thoughts swirled with optimistic courage. But I soon realized I was utterly unprepared for the dread that awaited me. On that fateful night, as the last remnants of staff trickled out of the building, the quiet stillness settled around me like a heavy fog, blotting out understanding and draping my shoulders with anxiety. I attempted to convince myself that the stark quiet wouldn't be such a terrible thing after all. After all, I had work that needed doing, the pulse of my professionalism urging me to focus. As the clock slowly inched its way toward the midnight hour, the hum of fluorescent lights morphed into a low, unsettling buzz, resonating with an unsettling pulse of unease that tugged at my senses. I adjusted the collar of my lab coat, forcing myself to prepare for the task at hand. It was simple, a routine procedure that I'd done countless times, a call to professionalism that I had trained for. I was afloat in my world, yet only hours into my shift I heard it, the first sound drifting through the haze of my concentration, a quiet tapping like fingernails brushing against a casket. I paused, utterly still, straining my ears. My heart thudded loudly against my chest, drowning out the sound of the clock ticking. Surely it was just plumbing, some old part of the building offering its resigned sighs. I tried to shake off the discomfort, painfully aware that my imagination was running wild, weaving stories to fill the spaces left vague by silence. Yet then, at precisely 2 a.m. it came again, and now it was closer, more insistent. A chill seeped deeper into the marrow of my bones, curling around my spine, squeezing it with a grip I couldn't easily shake. I stepped tentatively toward the source, room 3. I pushed the door open just a crack, and it creaked ominously, revealing a corpse resting on the slab, its skin starkly pale and lifeless. The unnerving idea flickered through my mind, that numbing coldness was merely the aftermath of death. But as I stood there, I felt it, eyes unseen watching me from the beyond, an oppressive presence that seemed to tug at me, pulling me into its depths. The fine hairs on the back of my neck prickled, a primal instinct begging me to flee from the dead. But I swallowed hard and turned to leave. Yet, inexplicably, I was drawn back. An insatiable urge urged me toward the body as if an unseen magnet had latched onto my very being. Perhaps it was just morbid curiosity, like a moth irresistibly attracted to an open flame. I shuffled backward uncertainly, inhaling sharply as I noticed something peculiar that shouldn't have been there. Beside the body, nestled in the corner, lay an object, a small wooden box, weathered and dust-covered, the surface marred by time's relentless embrace. I stepped toward it, my heart racing once more, the specter of dread thickening in the air around me. What on earth was it doing there? No one had mentioned a delivery or an item requiring my attention, and yet here it was, quietly demanding recognition. I hesitated, every instinct screaming at me. Should I call it in? Should I leave it alone? But the instinctive urge to press my hands against its cool surface, to pry it open and unearth whatever mysteries lay within, clawed relentlessly at my insides. What if it was something significant, untouched and begging, no pleading, to be discovered? Moments stretched infinitely, filled with the mundanity of breath and the weight of fear, and I finally buckled beneath the pressure. With quickening breath, I reached for the box. The moment my fingers brushed against the surface, the temperature in the room plummeted, effectively draining the warmth from my skin like a stealthy thief in the silent dark. A cold gust of wind whispered through the air, sending a shiver racing down my spine. At that precise moment, the tapping began again, louder, frantic this time, reverberating off the walls, the sound morphing into an agonizing rhythm akin to a heart struggling to beat, echoing an unholy call within this sanctuary of the deceased. I couldn't breathe. Every ounce of my training screamed at me that I needed to leave, desperately and urgently, but my body felt paralyzed, locked in place, unable to comply. Finally, I tore my gaze away from the box, forcing my head to turn toward the corpse. The lifeless face appeared to have twisted, as if it wanted to convey a message, with its eyes seemingly fixated on my every move, disturbingly alive in their vacant stare. The horror tingled through every inch of my body as I stumbled backward, my grip tingling with dread, until I collided with the wall behind me, the air around me growing increasingly suffocating. Suddenly, the lights above flickered, casting erratic shadows that elongated and twisted along the floor, engulfing me in darkness. I felt my heart thunder in my chest as I cast one last look at the body, and now it was no longer alone. There, creeping along the periphery of my vision, a shadow lingered, moving as if it had a will of its own. Yet when I focused, all vanished into the stillness, leaving me once again entrenched in the unsettling silence. Everything about that night suggested an end, but peculiarly enough, I felt drawn toward the basement storage, an irrational compulsion forcing my feet forward, as if some thread of fate pulled me toward unseen horrors and hidden truths. I had heard dark tales from the older morticians, stirring whispers about the forgotten sections that housed things meant to remain buried, mere shadows in the depths of this building. Gathering what little remnants of my courage remained, I made my way down, the heavy door groaning ominously behind me. The air grew thick, heavy with a palpable sense of dread, like an unseen weight pressing down over me, each step seeming to turn my blood to ice. Once I reached the bottom, I flicked on the light. A solitary bulb illuminated the space, casting a sickly yellowish glow that flickered like a dying ember. The shelves loomed overhead, filled with forgotten artifacts. Treasures turned to dust, memories left undisturbed, lost in time's cruel march. Then my breath hitched. It came into view, an open drawer. I hadn't left it like that. My pulse surged again, racing through my veins. I crept closer, and when I peered cautiously inside, the weight of dread mounted to an unbearable level. The contents weren't just medical supplies or unusual memorabilia meant to stir nostalgia. No, it was worse. They were photographs scattered haphazardly, each one depicting a name and a haunting date inscribed beneath. Each name tied to a life extinguished, and one name made my skin crawl, sending icy tendrils snaking up my spine. It was the same name from earlier, the very body I had examined. I stumbled back instinctively, breath coming in desperate gasps as the darkness seemed to converge around me. This wasn't merely an oversight or a misplaced file. No, it was a lingering presence, reaching out with fingers so long gone they had lost definition, seeking recognition. I turned, nearly tumbling back up the stairs, desperate to escape from the whispers of the dead that seemed to echo around me. I barely made it through the door before the shadows enveloped me. The tapping persisted, erratic, mocking, an incessant rhythm that encircled me, as if the very building were alive, breathing through the murmurs of those who had departed this world. As I thrust myself into the sanctuary of the night shift, reality shattered, slipping from my grasp. A lifetime of preparation, years of study and practice, could not quell the gnawing unease that threatened to consume me. All those faces, all those stories, still bound to this realm, pulling me closer, begging for acknowledgement, tethered to me like sorrowful specters lurking just out of sight. In that moment, I nearly quit, almost fled from that cold, hollow building. Yet here I am, still confronting the ghosts that lurk beyond the fluorescent lights, desperate to reach home, to be remembered, to uncover their stories. If you have ever walked through a space shrouded in grief, you'll understand the tangled web of emotions that twist and knot together, heavy upon the heart. And if you crave more tales whispered into the stillness of the night, of things unseen that gnaw at the edges of reason, you might find a kindred spirit within these confessions. So let this serve as your solemn warning. Once you become privy to the tales revealed here, once you taste the weight of those shadows hovering nearby, the darkness may stretch forth to ensnare you as well, even when you believe no one is observing. You might desire to linger, to bask in the stories, the whispers, but be mindful, there is always a price for uncovering the truths nestled comfortably behind the silence. So, if you are still here, perhaps a piece of you craves to hear more, to delve deeper into what lurks in the quiet. Just tread lightly, for some pasts are far better left undisturbed. Welcome to the Dark Witness. Just know that those who wander too deep into its mysteries sometimes don't return at all.